Welcome to the HMO Property Show, by investors for investors. Brought to you by the HMO Property Co, Australia's leaders in impact investing. Investments made with the intention to generate a measurable, beneficial social or environmental impact alongside a positive financial return. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, Neil Gibb, and today I've got a very special guest, which leads on nicely from last week's podcast, which was how to become a property entrepreneur and build multiple streams of income. Today, we have Cheryl Leong from the Growth Hub. Cheryl, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Neil. It's so fantastic to be here. I'm very, very honored. And yeah, great to share.
Absolute pleasure. And the reason that this podcast is going to follow on nicely is because Cheryl is the expert in not only building teams that are outsourced, but also building teams that are outsourced and also engaged in the work that you do as an entrepreneur and building your own property empire or property business. And
absolutely.
We do that by using virtual assistants. And today we're going to talk about like how and when you should outsource, what you should outsource, and how you outsource it.
Yeah, this is so cool. And I just want to sort of preface that to say, we look at property and you talk about an empire. Absolutely. When you're doing, whether it's development or whether you're in the business of property, you might be a property developer, buyer's agent, or whatever, right? You've got to look at it like a business if that's what you're intending to do. And with any business, I always say the model of scaling is you got to strategize, you got to systemize, and then you got to supersize, right? That's the model that we use at the Growth Hub for all our clients, because it's not just one or the other. You've got to have all those elements. And the strategy side is knowing where you're heading, right? Your goalpost. Yeah. What do you want to achieve, and what do you want to create? What's the sort of business you want to create? And then you've got to work back, because then the systems and the foundations, and systems are your processes, your operations, the tools that you use, whether it's a CRM or a task management, that needs to support the foundations. Then you can layer on, supersize your team. So whether it's a virtual team, you outsource it to virtual assistants, or your local team. Like, you need all these three elements to be able to have your business actually work as a business to scale.
And it sounds like there's a lot to consider there as well. And there is. But again, we can systemize that as well, can't we?
Absolutely. You can. And so, when I first started in the property space, I thought, like, if I've got so much happening, I'm going to plug in a virtual assistant and it will save everything. There'll be a unicorn. They'll do everything, right? And what I realized, and believe me, I've had many, many virtual assistants in my own businesses. And obviously we've got a lot that work with businesses. If I wasn't clear about what I wanted from them, they would have no idea, and they would be so overwhelmed and be lost, because I wasn't stepping into my role as a leader to have them and be clear as to their direction and to their tasks and their responsibilities. Yep. I was hoping that via magic osmosis that they would take what was happening in here.
If only,
right? They're like, this is how business works. It's just in here. If you can just tap in there via whatever ESP, you'll know what to do. And we sort of, because we're in that mode of, as entrepreneurs, we're in that mode of, I want to create, I want to be out there. I just want someone to take off all the back end stuff. And I realized that failed horribly many times when I first started. And it was only when I realized that I've got to slow down to speed up. Right. So be able to, when I say slow down, and this is like the entrepreneur going, did they say slow? No. Yeah, you need to step back and have a pause and go, what do I want to continue to do? What's my genius? And what is the stuff that supports my genius? Right. So if you're in your role, like, it might be, I just want to be out talking to investors, like, going having a look at sites or whatever, all the other back end operational stuff, if that can be delegated to someone else, you've got to get really clear in your mind, what do they need, not you need, what do they need to be able to take that off your hands?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not only for virtual assistants as well, that's for any team, internal, external, subcontractors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you've got to have that awareness of what you do, being able to almost decompartmentalize, right? This is marketing, this is sales, this is onboarding, this is fulfillment, right? But I mean, when we start off in business, we sort of think business is a ball. It's not a ball, right? You've got different aspects of the business. And once you start to break that up and go, okay, under each of these segments or business segments, I'm doing these sorts of tasks. And then you start to go, all right, in the marketing section, I don't need to be doing my video editing, till 2 a.m. I can delegate that.
Yeah.
So then in the sales, same thing. Do I need to do all my appointment setting? No. And same thing. So you go through each of what you're doing in your business, then you start to see, I can delegate stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And then whether that's then to a virtual team or someone local, that's another, that's the next question.
Yeah. And I think as an entrepreneur, if I could go back and start again, one of my first hires would be an EA, PA or VA to support me with my admin and low value tasks. And I don't mean to make that sound like a bad thing that I've got low value tasks, but as a business owner, you need to focus on income generating tasks so that you can pay the bills and also free up your mind from doing all these small mundane tasks that are quite repetitive. Because as a leader, you need to have a clear head so that you can strategize and think and move forward and do the bigger things, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And we often think that, it's going to take me 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and I'll just do it, right? But it's an accumulation. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yes.
Yeah. But each time you're doing a 5-minute task, you're shifting your focus away from other things.
Yes.
Right. So you keep getting distracted. You're like, I've got to do this little thing. And then you sort of go, oh shit, I'm going to do this little thing. And then, it's taking your focus away from the high value stuff. So it is more so the dollar productive things that you should go. Absolutely. I agree. First thing I'd do is get an EA, sort out emails, calendar invites, like all that sort of needing to coordinate stuff, get that off your plate to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's break down. In the last podcast, Cheryl, I give people a specific journey that they could follow. And first and foremost, I said that they should focus on replacing their income, because you can't build your own property business whilst you're working full time for somebody else. And depending whether somebody had enough money to go out there and purchase properties and retrofit them, or purchase blocks of land and build brand new, or whether we use the rent-to-rent strategy. The podcast was obviously all focused on HMO, rooming houses, etc. So let's say we're a solopreneur, we're out there doing our little side hustle. We've got 3 or 4 head leases of our own, of other people's properties that we've covered with a long-term 5 to 10 year lease. We're then subleasing them rooms out individually. We've got, 5 properties. So we've got potentially 30 to 35 tenants that we're looking after now as well. And we need to be out there finding more properties and speaking to more joint venture partners and raising more capital so we can do more deals. How do we, what do we do to realize what we need to outsource first? And then how do we actually verbalize that or diarize that or write that down in a process? Document it is the word I'm trying to find. How do we document that in a way that someone else can understand it and run that process for us?
Yeah. So what we've found is one of the best ways to begin that is to understand your whole journey. It's sort of almost like a client journey, but your journey of how do you actually do each of these components. I often find that actually creating a flow chart of it is really helpful, because then you get what's in your head and you can then see step by step and the decision making that happens in there, right? Once you flowchart everything from the beginning to the end, then you can start to see the tasks that happen at each of these, little traffic lights, for example. And when you see each of these tasks, you can start to decide whether you want to keep doing that or someone can take on that work. And I guess the challenging bit for people who are more sort of A-type or dominant behaviors who like to hold on to tasks is going, I'm the best one to do this. Only I can do it, right? Like the control freaks out there, right?
I've been there, yep.
Yeah. No one can do it as well as I can, right? You're going to get stuck. If you have that mentality that no one can do it as well as you can, you're going to continue to be stuck. Right? So you've got to be able to assess, like, can I, like, someone might do it 80% as well as I can, but what does that free me up to do that is more dollar productive? So for the people that tell me I'm not comfortable with someone looking at my emails, I'm like, how often are you, how much time are you spending on your emails? They're like, I've got 150 unread emails. They're everywhere. I'm like, you've got to that's one of the first things you got to get off your plate.
Yeah.
Right.
And a VA
come up
with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've got to come up, and here's the thing, you've got to come up with a system for them to understand how to work with your emails. So that's one of the first things I did. Like I set up a system where I said, okay, there are things you can go through my emails and categorize them into, Cheryl, you've got to action this, or Cheryl, this is just an FYI, it's a CC, or here, Cheryl, I've actioned it. I've booked in this appointment. It was a referral, so I've organized a meeting for you. So you need to sort of sit down and go through, if emails are an example, sit down and categorize the types of emails that you get, and then the action that you want to happen out of each of those. And you'll be able to see, there's a certain trend of the types of emails that you get. I'd say with most businesses, you get an inquiry, you get referrals, people ask about your service, and like someone else can respond on your behalf, even if it's to kick it off, and then you can continue the conversation.
Yeah.
But zero inboxes, and I know zero inbox sounds like a pipe dream, but it is possible if you're not doing it all.
Yes, 100%. And I liked what you said there. No one can do it better than you. And what I would add on that is until they actually do, because I've been that person where I've said, no one can do this. This is just all in my head. And I actually went to an event a couple of weeks ago and I heard a guy say, the reason I can't scale my business is because it's so unique and no one can really do what I do. And I was just like, wow, that was me a couple of years ago before I really brought people in and created system processes and outsourced the majority of my day.
Exactly. And also I think, and then we've got to really stand into that leadership role to go, how do I empower this person that's taking on this role to be the best and even better than I am? Because you want to actually surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, right? And instead of feeling that you need to push them all the time, like motivate them, inspire them, lead them to be the best versions of themselves. And then you'll realize that then you can sort of step back from it and go, actually, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely possible. Well, you've got to learn to trust people.
Yeah. Well, Richard Branson's got 400 companies, I think, at the last count. And he has a 45-minute meeting every morning with his EA just to answer any questions that she can't answer. And then he goes off cruising around Necker Island or skiing or something like that. So
yeah. She probably has an EA. The EA for the EA. Yep. Who's got an EA. Can you imagine her inbox?
Yeah.
But yeah, and actually just on that point, what I find is it's really, really important. A lot of entrepreneurs are, because they're wired to be visionaries, they're not often, you want someone who's operationally organized and to complement you. So it's really important that whoever's in your team, that if you're working with them quite closely, that they complement your skill. So if you're not very process driven, make sure you've got someone who's process driven.
Yes, absolutely.
And learn how to work with them, and they're with you as well, because you'll frustrate them as well, because you're like, I just want this to be done. It's rainbows, just do it. And they're like, I don't know what that means.
That's me. That's me with my EA.
Yeah, but she understands you enough to sort of go, all right, but I need this, this, and this, and this, and this. And you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know what you're for. So we've got emails are one of the things that we can outsource. What you work with a lot of people in the property game, Cheryl. So what other things do you help people realize that can be outsourced, and they do outsource and free up a lot more time as well? Because the like I said, the other podcast was all about scaling this business from you being the head lessor of one property to building a property portfolio of 10 properties, replacing your income and being a full-time property developer.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're talking about sort of someone that's doing sort of head leases and all of that, so there could be things in terms of, well, if you're looking for more deals, right? Like being able to provide a brief of what those types of properties are, and being able to come up with a process where it says, all right, well, these are the areas that we're targeting. You can do a few things, Mr. or Mrs. Assistant. You can reach out to all the agents in that area to find out if they've got any properties that suit that brief, or you can go through RP data and identify properties that might suit that brief, send out letters. So that property sourcing component can be a big part that an assistant can help you with.
It really speed up the process.
Absolutely. And even if it's just to shortlist properties for you, they're going through 500, 1,000 properties or whatever that might be, coming up with a list of, I don't know, even if it's 50, that's, a few thousand less properties that you were going through previously. So they're shortlisting, and as you get better at qualifying the properties and coming up with almost like a checklist, then that decision making is going to be easier for them.
Yes.
And again, it's this filtering through. The whole idea is to be able to filter through like large, whatever you're doing, that's sort of large quantities of stuff, for you to end up being at the end of that funnel where you're making decisions.
Yes. And that can save you from 3 to 4 hours a day of trolling through realestate.com, Domain, RP data, for sale by owner, all of them sites out there. Could bring it down to a 15-minute 6 property review, and then you can go start negotiating on them properties.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when you're going through the shortlist and you're like, oh, there's things that are missing, you can instruct your assistant to go, can you find out more about that? Come back to me. Yeah. And then they can do all the legwork. And say if for example, you're having to package up things for investors, say if you've got investors that you're presenting this to, you might put together a property report or investor report. And again, your VA can go through, create, CMAs, can do all that, dial before you dig. They can literally put together an information pack all in the background, whilst you're doing other things.
Yes. And the other things, we're not sat on the beach drinking cocktails by this point. We are still focusing we're still focusing on our income generating tasks. So we're out there negotiating, putting deals together. And we've got somebody else checking our emails, doing property searches for us. And also, if we're a buyer's agent, potentially packaging up deals and creating reports that we can then on-sell to other investors.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you're doing sort of HMOs and you're talking about getting people to rent out the rooms, that's another section where you can, again, filter, having a process, having qualifications, having templates. Like these are all the process type things that can be templated as much as possible, or you can create templates or scripts or processes that someone can follow the bouncy ball to be able to do more volume than you would have by yourself.
Yes, excellent. What I will just say on this as well, with the evolution of AI in the way that it just burst onto the scene just recently, there's a lot of technology out there now which makes this process simpler as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can, whether it's creating a video that captures all the steps of what you do and documents that, you can do that. Have someone just follow the instructions.
Yeah.
It's absolutely possible. If you can combine AI with a human, which allows them to scale what they're doing, it doesn't replace them. It actually allows them to do more. It's leveraging.
Yes. So we've got emails, property searches, property reports. What else can we outsource, Cheryl?
Well, if different types of businesses, any of the marketing that you need to do. So if you're marketing for your tenants,
Yeah,
you can do that. So they can help with reaching out to different, social media.
As the rooms online.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Put the rooms online. They can answer any inquiries, send out any applications, do the qualification. Like people don't really need to talk to you until the really pointy end, if you even need to be that person doing that. Right. And so you've got to look at your whole end-to-end process. And that's why I say it's really important of looking, like flow charting the end-to-end process. Then you can see where there are kinks in the chain, or things that could be automated, or things that can be optimized. And if you can't do that yourself, obviously get someone to be, who can help you identify where there are areas that can be optimized. So yeah, you're able to then see what are the manual things that are taking a lot of time. What tools can I use to automate, or who can I use to help automate that process?
Now, I know a lot of people will be listening to this now who are business owners or solopreneurs, or have got the side hustle on the side and they're just spinning plates left, right, and center. And they'll be thinking, I just don't have time to do this. How do we create the time to do this? And then how much we know the time is going to free up, but how do we actually stop and slow down, put the handbrake on when we're just so busy, our inbox is filling up, and we prioritize that over creating the system? Because I hated creating systems and processes in the business. I actually asked my team to do it, to document their own role.
Yeah, absolutely. You said the word prioritize, and that's the main thing. We've all got the same amount of time. It's just which priority, right? And we look at systems and processes. We know it's important, but we don't prioritize it because it's actually quite uncomfortable doing it, right? Unless you're a real process driven. So it really is, what I've found the most effective way is if it's not something that you naturally like to do, like have someone facilitate that for you. And another reason is because often we are unconsciously competent. And what that means is that we do things so naturally and it's instinctive.
Yeah. We
don't realize it actually takes 30 steps to get to do that. Right? So you actually need someone to go through and pick that out of your brain. I had a call with a client today, and we were going through their processes, and he was literally like, this is why I work 16 hours a day, because I'm doing all of this. And just to be able to go, he's like, I don't have time now, but I can see how this is freeing up my time. And there was just so much stuff that he was doing, and all the communications and things like that. So, the thing that we need to ask, if I'm going to make it a priority, I have to make it a priority now, because looking forward, what if I'm stuck in this same position 2 years from now? Is it actually going to slow me down from where I need to be? And if the answer is yes, then you've got to prioritize it. And then the question is, am I going to be disciplined enough to do it myself, or do I need to have someone guide me in that process?
Yeah. And the way that I've done it in the past as well, and not probably done it as detailed as I probably would have, is if I was doing a task, I'd just use Loom to record that task, and I'd talk my way through the task and say, this is how I search for potential HMOs on realestate.com. and I just talk my way through it, and then I create a library of Loom videos.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And Loom has the ability to then transcribe it into steps, right? And then use AI, then it creates a process for you. And then it's like,
so you've got a video, you've got you explaining exactly how to do it and documented by the AI transcription.
Yeah.
Really,
but importantly, you've got to, but that's prioritizing it in your business, knowing, I'm not really enjoying this process, but I know that it's a means to an end of getting me, the help that I need.
Yes, absolutely. What about the next thing that a lot of people will come up with? I can't afford to do it yet because I'm still only one person doing all these things. I don't have enough income to do this.
Yeah.
What would you say to people there?
So the income ones are, obviously it's going to be a case by case thing, right? So you've got to identify where you're getting some income to begin with, whether you're putting it, either looking at it as an investment, like if you've got a bit of cash set away to go, okay, well, if I was going to invest in something, what's it going to free up my ability to do? And how quickly can I get that return on investment? So it's really important that you then identify if it's really you're cash strapped in some way. It's identify the most dollar productive tasks that you should be focusing on, and just making those small investments. Like if it's a project type thing, like if you want to have someone, a VA work for you for 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week or whatever, you need to look at that to say, if that's taking my time off, and that's allowing me to then double my income, well, like, am I willing to make that investment?
Yeah.
Right. And if you can see that, you'll create it. You'll find a way to make that happen. So it's not, I think we have to go from that mindset of that scarcity, I don't have enough, to what do I need to do to make it happen?
Yeah. And also, what is it costing me by not having this in place?
Absolutely. Yeah. If I keep sort of going scraping at the bottom of the bucket, then that's where you're always going to keep going. You're not going to let anything go.
So as our business grows and we start hiring more people, whether that's internal or whether we just build a team of VAs that support the business, how do we keep them all focused? How do we keep them all engaged? And because these people are spread across the world, sat in a room behind a computer doing repetitive tasks normally. How do we make sure that they're engaged? They are. A lot of people would be concerned about the fact that they might not be at their desk for the full amount of time because the old school mentality of I can't see them, so I don't trust them.
Yes.
How do we make all them things work, Cheryl, so that we've got an engaged team that's doing what they need?
Yeah, absolutely. I really, really love this question because, I said everyone's so decentralized now. I realized that as a leader, it really, for me, what I've found has been the best is making sure that your role as the leader is to motivate, inspire, and really live out the values of your business. And I talk about mission and values. I didn't realize how important it was until I built my own business and I had a larger team. It's that mission and values that really ties people in and keeps them going each day. However, as a business owner, it's really important that you also do things to engage your team in terms of, so we do things like we've got social events. We make sure that at the end of every week we catch up. I do feel there's a huge amount of benefit in giving people the flexibility in their lives. Like people want work-life balance. So for us, right, if people need, their parents or whatever, they'll say, I need 2-3 hours to go get the kids or whatever that might be, but I'll be back at my desk and you can reach out to me. That's okay. Like for me, it's the output. And I think it's really important that you focus on the output and the value that someone brings as opposed to are they at their desk every second of every moment. And people realize that because they've got there's so much more value for their output than the clocking off and clocking on, they're more motivated to make sure that they have good output, right? But you've got to measure that. You've got to have a way to measure and reward that output. So you've got to really think of, what you do now as the leader and the entrepreneur as a leader, as opposed to just, business. You've got to put your leadership hat on to go, how do I get people to be engaged? So make sure that you're seen, whether you're talking in Slack or your messages, like touch base with people, like, how are you doing? What's your day like? Even things like going, all right, we've got a fitness challenge. Let's all get into, doing some fitness stuff and giving updates. So that is outside of the day-to-day business. But then you might have a fitness and a wellness challenge where people are updating you on the things they're doing in terms of meditation, what they're eating, how their personal growth. So that side of stuff, like, it takes a bit of time, but you're keeping people, you're keeping them happy, right? They're happy working for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's that is a big part of, especially as your team gets bigger, you do have to invest a little bit more time on making sure that, people are engaged, and then you don't have as much turnover.
Yeah. Okay. So with the Growth Hub, you help entrepreneurs and business owners find suitable virtual assistants to fit in their business, but then do you still help manage them VAs as well, and also build the culture through the Growth Hub so that they're engaged in the work that they're doing?
Well, here's the thing, because most business owners don't have the capacity to do it.
Or the headspace at the time.
The headspace, right? Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we realized. Like, we've got to do the looking after of the team. So things like, we're going to have a Halloween special in 2 weeks. So everyone dresses up. There's games and all of things. Like, we do that. Like, the business owner, they don't have the capacity to do it. So when there's going to be like 80 people that turn up and they're enjoying an online party type thing, or we've got things like the wellness challenge, so people are engaged in that. So it's all it's the wellness stuff and the well-being, but it's also training. It's like training them. We've got a whole lot of things around property training, but personal development stuff as well. So all these sorts of things that really grow them in the background. Well, then the business owner just gets to focus on business stuff. Right? And our role is to make sure that we have empowered our virtual assistants to power the businesses.
Magic. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I seen a post that you did on Facebook the other day, Cheryl. It said, to change from being reactive in your business to being productive requires that you have to have the systems in place for your team to work proactively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that post.
When they're constantly asking you 5 million questions, like, you can just imagine, it's just like, and I often say there's a question that you need to ask. Is it a process issue or is it a people issue? And 90% of the time it's a process issue.
Yeah.
And that can be fixed. So that's an easier fix than the people issue, to be honest.
Absolutely. Because every time you bring somebody else in, you need to train them back up. And if it's a process issue, they're going to trip up at the same point in that process again.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're looking to scale, like, if that process isn't well defined, or then it's going to really hamper how quickly you can scale.
Yeah, absolutely. What about data and security with using a virtually outsourced team? How do you protect the data and your IP essentially?
With IP, and this is a really interesting question, because in terms of the property businesses that we deal with, a lot of our VAs will access software, like if it's like RP data or whatever, and they'll have logins to a particular software. So they don't really have per se the information about clients or anything that are necessarily private, say, because they're all generally working off software.
Yep.
And they've got access to that particular software. In terms of sharing passwords and so on and so forth, like there are tools like LastPass or whichever, which will allow you to control what passwords you're sharing with your team. And that's with anyone. And I highly recommend using something like that instead of going, here's the password,
Definitely been
1, 2,
guilty
3,
of that
4.
before as well.
Yeah, yeah. And don't do that, because then obviously there's the risk of someone going in, changing their password. So share passwords through something like LastPass or another password encryption. In terms of IP, it's we have, as much as you put in, the truth is, as much as you put in non-disclosure, non-competes, and all of that, the truth is, no matter whoever it is, local or virtual, like if they're wanting to do the wrong thing, they're going to find ways to do it, So in terms of IP itself, it really is a matter of, for me, it's more a culture thing. Like, people who are going, you get a sense if you're a leader that's engaged with your team. Generally, you get a sense if people are doing the right thing or not. And if you are detached from that, then you need to really make sure that there's someone else in the business that can really be more connected to your people. In terms of file sharing and all that, there are ways that you can have virtual workspaces to ensure that people aren't like saving stuff in USBs or selling. So there's ways to do that, but it does depend on each business and the level of real security that you need, because if you're accessing public information, then there's, everyone's got access to realestate.com or whatever that might be. But do take into account things like, in your own business, password sharing, access to certain folders and files. Make sure that you've got things like two-factor authentication. And these are sort of the basics in terms of security. But then, the next level is if you've got access to client information and bank accounts and all that, then you're talking about another level of security where you need to make sure that that's set up for you.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. You've touched on some tools there, or some tech tools. So we touched on LastPass with the file sharing. I think you referred to like Google Drive or Dropbox.
Yeah.
What are the tech tools are you using with the Growth Hub at the minute that you're seeing beneficial?
Yes, I highly recommend every business has some sort of task management or project management tool.
Yep.
Like, you really, really to keep on top of where your projects are and even your own individual tasks. So project management tool. So we use ClickUp, and we can set up ClickUp for clients as well. So for most businesses, generally they'll have a CRM if they're, if they're needing to do marketing, emails, and, sales and marketing. So they've got a CRM. And that CRM may also be a task management tool. Often I find CRMs are great at being CRMs.
Yeah.
Task management tools are great at being task management tools.
Yeah.
So for us, we use a CRM like HubSpot. So we've got HubSpot, and our project management, task management is ClickUp. Yeah. But if you're not used to setting up these sorts of things like task management tools, and you don't know how to use it, it won't be a very helpful tool. So you've got to actually customize it to how that business works, and then make sure that everyone is on board to actually use it like it's meant to be used. And when that happens, you'll realize that communication's so much easier. Like, everyone knows where things are at in the business. And you can also, as in terms of, managing your team, you can see what's happening and what's not happening. So you've got oversight to be able to monitor their performance as well.
And can you include checklists and stuff like that in the ClickUp?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Checklists, folders, you can link your processes. So we say we'll break it up into, here's the task that you need to do every Monday, for example, link the process to that task. So if someone else comes on board, they're either a new person or an additional person, you go, here's your whole, this is your workspace of what you do in a week. Just follow each of these tasks. The task process is here. Do that. And that's what I've found has been the best way of onboarding newbies into your business.
And then that way, if you've got ClickUp with the process or the checklist set up in there, as a leader, you can log it in any time to see if people are being efficient, following process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said that it's really important that you actually set the date on the particular task.
Yeah.
That's when you can see it. So if it's a repetitive task, like they need to do it every day, they need to tick it off, but you need to set it up so it recurs every day. So you can go in and have a look, like you go, all right, well, something's been missed from here. You can log into the workspace, be able to see, oh, on Monday that wasn't ticked. Or if it was ticked, you sort of go, well, what was the break in the process that this mistake happened?
I've seen a few companies migrate to ClickUp recently as well. It's become more and more popular, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've like a lot of the task management tools, whether it's Monday, Trello, or ClickUp, they're all sort of similar. And I feel that at the end of the day, you need to set it up to suit the business, most importantly, and not overcomplicate it. Like it needs to be simple enough so people can use it, but set it up so that it's usable. Like the reminders. You got the reminders that there's processes that are linked to tasks, that communication is happening in that space as well. So yeah, if you're a business that hasn't had that before, just like anything new, you're going to have to get used to it. But really important that it becomes a practice that everyone starts to use.
Great. What are you using for communication with a team of virtual assistants?
Yeah, we use Slack.
Slack, yeah.
Slack, yep. We've been using Slack for years now. Slack's really great if you've got sort of larger teams, I find. And because we use Gmail as well, we don't have teams like someone that uses Office 365. You might use Teams, but we found Slack really great in just breaking up different either workspaces. So we can have those ad hoc communications, or say if you've got an automation and someone's made a payment or whatever that might be, it pops up in our Slack and it alerts everyone and everyone's like, yay, do little emojis of dancing bananas or whatever. So, in terms of engaging your team, yeah, you can't set off the alarms, but you've got your virtual announcement that happens as well. Brilliant. So there are automations that you can do to do that. And like I said, the ad hoc communications can all happen. And it's really interesting. Often my team will be like, how did you know that was happening? Or how did you know that I was going through a rough patch? Because I'm like, I can see everything on my Slack channel. I can see how you're communicating. I can see the actions, and it's, you might not realize, but it's like your office, like you're looking and you've got an overview of what your office is doing and how people are talking and communicating and so on. So yeah, Slack's been really, really helpful for that.
Excellent. Any other tech tools that we should touch on?
Oh, I talked CRM. Make sure you got your mobile fully charged. A really good one that I've started using. Actually, there are two more. One really helpful. There's an extension that I have on my emails that actually blocks out when I can read my emails. So I can only read my emails twice in a day. Right. My EA can still go in.
Yeah.
And it's called Inbox When Ready. So I can't access, you get emails that go bing, 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 bing all the time. right? I hated that. I get so distracted. So I said, nah, I'm just going to block it out. I can only read it. And even if I log into my email, it blanks out everything. And it actually forces me, if I really need to get an email, it'll make me wait for like 60 seconds. So it makes you think whether you really need to check that email or not, that inbox. So it blocks it out. I find that really, really good. The second one is motion. So have you heard of motion
Oh,
before?
that's the new AI task organizer.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
what I used to do that manually where I have my task list and say, well, it might take me half an hour, it might take me 15 minutes. But what I find really, really helpful is that you need to actually time block that task in your calendar. And if you don't have time in your calendar to do it because you're filled with other things, then you've got to look at it and go, what do I need to free up? Like a few questions. What do I need to free up so I can do that task? Or who can I delegate this task to? So motion's really good because it then sort of AI automatically puts those tasks into your calendar. And you've just got to be disciplined to go, okay, this time is I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. So yeah, worth worth trying that one out too.
Yeah. Excellent. And as you're explaining this, it all sounds very routiney, and that might freak a few people out because they're like, I don't want to be a business owner to follow a routine. That's why I left my other job. But there's two
Yeah,
in the mind. One is routine equals results. If I do not follow my morning routine, it knocks the rest of my day out. So I need to get up at a certain time. I need to go to the gym at a certain time. I need to have my breakfast by a certain time, be in the shower by a certain time. And it sounds mundane, but if I do them things, then I come to work and I'm in the right headspace, and I'm
absolutely.
for the rest of the day.
Absolutely. I posted about this exact thing yesterday where I said I've got the flexibility in my life because I am disciplined in my habits.
Yes.
Right. And I didn't realize that until, like I said, when I was just all over the place, I didn't feel I was in control. And the freedom and flexibility to create the life you want, it is still a level of creating that. So if you want flexibility, you got to be able to go, I need to get this done. Otherwise, all that other stuff's going to overflow. And I actually won't have that flexibility to do things when I want to do it.
I've been fortunate enough to see Mark Boris speak live in Perth at an event that I went to. And one of the things Mark said on stage, which stuck with me quite a lot, was systems breed freedom. Systems breed freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get the system, you get that routine, it breeds the freedom for you as the business owner.
Yeah. Yeah. You can, and it's important that as the business owner that you've got to innovate and you're constantly improving, but don't do it so often that it just creates too much of change all the time for your team, because your team really need to feel that they're in control, they know what to expect and so on. So it's really, really important. And I know when you start out and you might be a solopreneur and you can make changes anytime, it's fine because you're only dealing with yourself. This becomes more prominent and more important as you grow a team, because not they're going to rely on you to provide a level of stability as well. It doesn't mean you've got a boring business. It just means that you just need to be mindful of how you change things, how often you change things.
Cheryl, we have covered a lot today. We covered
It's incredible.
so much, and we probably could keep talking about this for another hour quite easily. Give us a couple of success stories just to wrap this up. Like who's reached out to you in a bit of a pickle, and how have you helped them out? What have you put in place, and what's their life like now?
Yeah, so I mean, we work with quite a few buyers agents, and often a lot. So we've had a few who we've worked with for say 3 years or whichever, where they were solopreneurs. They came on board. They were sort of starting out in their businesses, going, yeah, I've got quite a few clients, but I'm getting a little bit busy. A great example would be a client came on board, incredibly busy, lots of clients, but And he's like, I'll bring a VA on board and I'll see how she goes. And he sort of went, oh, I'll have her part-time. And he was really busy. And I always said, like, if you've got the capacity to bring on someone full-time, just bring on someone full-time. Because if they're there part-time, which means that you still have stuff that you're holding on to, right? Bring someone on full-time, they're dedicated to your business, and you're going to go, how can I fill up their bucket? Which means there's less. So when he started to transition to that, he entrusts the process, his business started to grow, and she started to take on a lot more of the back-end operations of his business, right? And then we sat down and went through, at the time, we hadn't been doing sort of process work as much at the time, but ever since then we have, and he's been able to go from solopreneur, he's brought on new buyer's agents into his team. His VA basically looks after all the client care side of things. He's brought on some VAs to help with property sourcing as well. So, the elements that we spoke about, like, there's people that help with the marketing side of things. So you can see how he's starting to take off all these things off his plate. He's getting to a point where all he does now is approve things from the other buyer's agents. Perfect. He's the approver now, and he's got the choice to be able to do that because he knows the system's in place, he's got the people in place, and he's got the right strategy to make sure that he fuels the marketing funnel and so on and so forth. So you need to be able to have a plan to go from busy hustle entrepreneur, one person, CEO, chief everything officer, to actually being the CEO where you're overseeing the strategy and the vision. And so that's what we've seen for so many of our businesses, to be able to go, I want to understand what is the business you want to create and what do we need to help you put in place to get to that point.
Just as you say in that last bit there, I'm thinking this podcast hasn't only been or isn't only relating to building a property empire. This is related to just building any business in general. So if you're a business owner and you've got something from this today, fantastic. If you're starting out on your property journey and you're wondering how to grow your business, we've just debunked that for you in the last 2 podcasts. Yeah. If people want to reach out, Cheryl, and have a chat, or they want to find out more about the Growth Hub and find out how you can support them through their growth in their business, what's the steps?
Yeah, send me an email, cheryl@thegrowthhub.io, and myself and the team will reach out, have a chat and more importantly is just understanding what you're trying to create. What is the business and the life you're trying to create? And if we can help you get there, I'll be more than honored to do that.
Fantastic. Cheryl, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been awesome. Thanks, Neil. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you stay up to date with all the cash flow positive property updates.